audience. It's so good to be here with all of you. We already have some questions in the Q&A. Michael, we're just starting. Can you hear us now? Let us know. And that's a good question. We're just starting now. So, Michael, thanks for joining us. We are here to talk about compensation with the one and only Melody from Spiff. My name is Eduardo. I am the events manager at Modern Sales Pros, and I'll be your host here today. But let's give the audience a few minutes to join us. And while we wait for the audience, I'm going to ask Melody icebreaker, and also audience go into the public chat and let us know where you're calling from. We'd love to hear from you. Melody, how's it going?
It's really good, Eduardo. How are you? It's great to be
I'm
here.
good, good. It's pretty cold in New York today. But since we are oh, Garrett is in New York too. Hey, Garrett. Since we are in the beginning of the year, it's SKO season. Melody, I want to ask you, what is your favorite holiday of the year?
It's sales kickoff, of course. That's genuinely. I'm at sales kickoff. Whenever we have the opportunity to swing virtual or live, I will always make it very vocal that it's my favorite holiday. So there's nothing like bringing a team together. It's electric. It's fun. So it's my favorite holiday for sure.
I agree. The energy is pretty good during this time of the year. Everyone is excited, everyone has goals, and everyone is working towards the goals. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
All right, so let's get this started. We have the audience coming. We have people from everywhere, from New York City, you are in LA, Melody. We have people from Colorado, San Francisco, all over the country. So thank you so much. As I said, we are here to talk about compensation plans in ramping. Um, and for those of you not familiar with Modern Sales Pros, your host for today, we are the world's largest and highest quality community for people in sales, sales management, sales leadership, in revenue operations. Um, Everything that you need to know about sales, you can come to us and then we will have something for you. And our goal is to create an environment for our members to answer the toughest revenue questions out there. And we do that through live events like this one you are about to experience. We do that through our forum. We have a robust forum online where you can go and ask any questions. We have 35K people there to answer your questions and to help you solve your problems. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be pretty helpful for you. And we also have in-person events, which is very exciting. We are planning a road trip this year, so we will have an in-person event near you this year. Let's focus on this event now. We have the Q&A panel. Somebody already sent a question in there. So please use our Q&A panel. I was talking with Melody backstage, and she said she loves answering questions. So please send your questions, and then we will get some time at the end of the event to answer them. And this panel is being recorded. So everything that Melody says here today, every question that you have, we are recording it, and it will be available for you later today. I will send a follow-up email with the link. Um, and the best thing about MSP is that we work with partners, and we have Spiff as our partner here today. So this webinar is sponsored by Spiff. Melody works there, and she's gonna let us know a little bit about what they do. Melody, I will pass the mic to you. Your presentation is up. You are ready to control everything. So have fun. Let us know everything that you know about the compensation plans, and I will back at the end. I'll be back at the end for the questions, but I'll be watching live and taking a lot of notes for the key takeaways I'll sending the audience after this. All right.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Eduardo. All right, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us to talk about how we're going to keep sellers motivated during the ramp period. And honestly, if I think about the life cycle of a seller, I think this onboarding period is probably my favorite. There's such a wealth of opportunity to not only infuse your company culture, infuse your product, infuse industry knowledge, pull your team together, but most importantly, it's such a critical time in a seller's life cycle to also help them see the opportunity with your organization on how they can make money and be successful for the longer term. So we're going to talk today about how to keep sellers motivated. Of course, spoiler alert, it's the comp plan. But today, for the next 45 minutes or so, we're really going to break it down. So we're going to talk about what are the different events in your team, in your organization that lead up to not only successful onboarding outcomes, but then also how to help your sellers really maximize their comp plans throughout that onboarding period. There's so much art and science that goes into it. I'm a really big fan of, you set your strategy, but business success lies in the details. So today we're really going to get into it. And I'm very excited. So if you are excited to not only learn about this topic, but also have a resource for some additional questions to ask your team, please take out your phone, maybe snap this kind of cool little QR code here. We've got a great seller experience handbook that can kind of be your like spiff in your pocket, maybe like a melody in your pocket while you're talking to your team about how to maximize your compensation program. There's a lot of really informative questions in here, kind of talking points for you to facilitate a dialogue across your team. So a huge thank you to our marketing leaders for this. It's a really phenomenal piece of content that has been really popular across the spiff community so far. So I'm going to jump into teeing it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get into the content. Eduardo did such a phenomenal job with your very kind introduction. We're very grateful to MSP. We've put on a lot of really wonderful events together. I guess by way of a formal introduction, my name is Melody. I'm here out of Los Angeles, California. So hello across the country and across the globe to everyone that's joined. I guess, I can certainly kind of share some stories, but I think as it relates to our topic today, the thing that I am most proud of and most passionate about in my career is that I started as an SDR and then worked my way to become a seller, and then kind of continued down this trajectory of supporting sales teams. And so a theme that I'm hoping that you'll hear today, and then a theme that maybe whether it's a reminder or something that can take with you, is just I have an enormous amount of empathy for our internal customers. So I really value every single selling role. I put myself in their shoes. I try to think about what we can do to ensure our sellers are successful and supported and happy. And so I really carry that with me throughout my entire career. And I'm hoping you can see some of that throughout today's presentation, or maybe if that will inspire you to maybe fly to your closest SDR team or your closest AE team and spend some time with them, because they're really the front lines that really ensure that any sort of success with your comp plan does manifest itself in your organization. So nice to meet you virtually. I see the chat blowing up. Awesome. I can't wait to get to some questions. I thought we're gonna dig into like the behaviors that lead to comp plan outcomes. I'm going to talk a little bit about onboarding and the comp plan components and when to use certain components and how to build a ramp schedule. But first, I kind of wanted to tee it up a little bit, and I kind of like to make fun of my own slide here because it is a little Captain Obvious. There's a lot of like State of the Union selling environment slides out there, and all of the dialogue is really fantastic. But I think for the purpose of kind of rolling into this presentation, I wanted to share kind of 4 key themes, and this may be new, this may be unique, that I think are important to understand in today's selling environment, but then also important to understand as it relates to your compensation plan when you try and drive behaviors that lead to outcomes. So obviously, a huge theme across every team, every industry, is a focus on efficiency. And so in that first 3-month period is really when, or 3 to 6 month period, whenever your onboarding is, it's so important to really think about like how to really get that person productive so they can be productive outside of their ramp period. So that message of efficiency, that message of productivity is pulling itself all the way through to day one, which I think, maybe 5 years ago, 3 years ago, the onboarding kind of program was maybe a little bit more not relaxed, but just with a focus on learning. I think now it's with a focus on teeing up efficiency. I think when it comes to operational like support, not only for your comp plans, but then also for onboarding or for any sort of compensation program in general, we hear a lot how revenue operations kind of ties together the infrastructure across your prospect and your customer journey. But I also think that revenue operations has to be the glue to align behaviors and know what the right behaviors are. So that way, when you're building your compensation plan and you're focused on that onboarding period, you are extremely familiar with what is successful across kind of each part of your team. So it's not only that kind of art, but it's the science as well that you have to blend together to ensure that your ramp period is set up to be successful. This third point is an interesting one. Relationship selling is making a comeback. A lot of the kind of tools and technology that allowed us to operate in mass, I think, are they're finding their way into some maybe challenges. So when you bring somebody on board and you can just add contacts, launch a sequence, and one of a sudden you're producing some meetings, I think some organizations are starting to think about how to mature their model in a way that allows for efficiency and relationship building in the marketplace. So I know I have been in so many conversations where these systems of mass production, which I love them, they're wonderful, but I do think we need to diversify when it comes to setting targets in the ramp period, that it's maybe no longer a coin operated effort. And I kind of have already shared this kind of fourth theme here, which is maybe a reminder here that the connection between productivity and output starts at onboarding. I like to say that the onboarding period is the period where your sellers are determining their buy-in, how much time they're going to give you, maybe how long they're going to stay with the organization, how excited they are to sell the product. It's kind of like an unspoken thing that I wanted to call out. That onboarding period is critical for buy-in. It's critical to get somebody excited. And so when you're teaching them about your product, about your industry, about your sales process, whatever that is, teaching them how their behaviors will put more money in their pocket is really where you're going to get that loyalty and commitment to be productive and excited and motivated to continue to smash their goals onward. So those are a couple of kind of key themes. I like to call these melodies nighttime thoughts. This is what I think about when I cook dinner is sales. So I hope that was helpful for you, or maybe a little bit of a reminder. But these are really important themes for us to continue to kind of harp in on. And I'm very excited to see how this will evolve this year. So I'm going to go ahead and start to get into the details here. So we've got a couple of parts to this presentation. Maybe this is Act 1. We're going to talk about how to drive the behaviors that lead to comp plan outcomes. Everybody has always, we've all been in onboarding classes where you want more, right? You want to understand how is this going to help me in the long run, and how is this going to help me in my role? So I wanted to really hone in on that, and that's kind of Act 1 of the presentation today. So first, we're going to talk about the behaviors that lead to comp plan outcomes. We get asked this a lot at Spiff, is how do I set ramp targets, especially for maybe growth organizations or organizations where you need a little bit of a refresher and maybe need a third party voice out here in the internet land to share some ideas or thoughts. But we get asked this a lot, is how do I set a ramp target when I don't trust my data, when I don't know if I can rely on my data, or we've had a couple of really great quarters, but I anticipate some change. So what do I do? So I wanted to share just some ideas to help get this rolling, because ultimately, a ramp schedule is how we measure the success of that onboarding period. So I've got a couple of examples on the screen. One or few of these examples may or may not be our internal Spiff ramp schedule. So I wanted to kind of make that real. This is something that we use as well. And I wanted to go through example by example. So let's say you're in a highly transactional environment, or hope to be in a transactional environment, and you've got kind of at least 2 to 3 core sales plays that you can run. What that means is you've got repeatable success. You can maybe set a ramp schedule that's a little bit more aggressive. So that's example number 1. Or example number 3 is maybe your product or service is focused up market, but maybe in mid-market or majors, and maybe not quite ready for enterprise. Maybe that's a goal down the roadmap. I would lean towards example number three. So if you have got an inbound team that is cranking, and then maybe you need to farm some outbound. Example number three is great because it allows some time for them to get ramped, but then also mid-market organizations, especially in the upper mid-market, maybe take some time to close. So you're building a ramp schedule that is allows for a steady a ramp. Maybe example number two is you're in a transactional environment and you've got a set playbook, but you're anticipating additional products, so therefore additional stakeholders, and that might increase your cycle time by just a hair because you've got more people in the mix. So you want to account for that by maybe adjusting the ramp period a little bit longer. So you want to just think about like how does the math add up for my organization? What's the average cycle time? What are a couple of account executives that are exemplary that I can model off of? You want to review the outliers and normalize the number as best you can, but kind of like what I just shared with these examples, you want to obviously kind of stress test the common sense rule against your ramp target. So here's some quick examples, also some examples from my industry peers as well I had added here. I will also say that oftentimes a ramp schedule is tied to a dollar amount, which it should be, of course. That's what you're there for, right? That's what we want. But in the case that you're adjusting your business model, or there's some seasonality or unforeseen circumstances, or you don't feel confident making the call on this based on your data, I encourage you to do like a unit incentive or like a unit measurement. So maybe it's instead of a dollar amount, it's maybe one deal, two deals, three deals. And that'll also help you determine longer term what will be successful and where your onboarding team can start to be successful depending on how your go-to-market segmentation is. So here's some examples. I hope this is helpful. But in any case, when you're presenting this internally, which is also another question we get quite often, is presenting all of the different options. So with what data you're using, maybe what data is absent, maybe suggest a couple of hypotheses and share some examples. It would be my recommendation to start to get forward with setting a ramp schedule. So this is a really cool thing. I think it's easily measurable, and I think just trying to get to a really good place where you've got a little bit of data to normalize, or you can make a call with the information that you've got at hand is something that I would recommend here. So that's how to set a ramp target. And then in that ramp period, we want to really ensure that we're supporting our sellers through and through. And oftentimes I feel like it's really critical to double click on everything that supports the comp plan and the onboarding period, right? You want your seller to leave onboarding like ready to go, excited, equipped, to obviously make money, and that obviously helps the seller achieve their personal goals as well. So I wanted to kind of touch on this a little bit here, and this is kind of a little bit more of my enablement hat on, but I think it's important for us to talk about is how do you ensure that you're effectively supporting a seller during their ramp period? So it's critical. They're going from a new hire to a beginner to a level of proficiency within a set amount of time. This is the way that I think about it is learning, effort, outcomes, and then measurements. We just talked about the measurements, but in every week of every minute of every day, I really feel like if you maximize your program, you'll maximize the outcome of the plan. So we're going to get into the next couple of slides, sharing some kind of onboarding kind of tips, tricks, things that have kind of, I know, worked for teams that I've been a part of over the years. And my hope is that you maybe take that to your team and inspect your program in a way that helps you roll into an effective plan. So however your onboarding program is structured, aligned with your ramp schedule, it's so important in month one, you do a couple of things. One, it's ensuring that you're communicating why people buy your product and why they don't, and maybe going through a couple of deal reviews. Um, I think it's really wonderful when you enter into an onboarding period and you get the team overview, you get the department overview. But my devil's advocate thought to that is that, do those presentations help somebody get better at their job? And I think that's the lens I want you to think about. So when somebody is in their first week of work, especially when you're hiring a senior seller, it's go right for the win stories, right for the examples, and then I would recommend establishing a guardrail for learning. So maybe in the first 30 days, your goal is to have one or two booked meetings. So then in the first 30 days, you need to break down what an initial conversation will be with a prospect or a customer and teach to that. And that's how you get that person to their initial goal in month one, by maximizing that learning time. So it's just making that connection that helps them feel like they're making some progress. So really, on the effort side, making sure that you're scheduling plenty of shadowing activities with product, with implementation, and also doing some role plays too. So then at the end of month one, when your seller is getting on the phone, maybe with a customer or a partner, they're super proficient at least those first couple of calls. And those first couple of calls then lead to some opportunity in month two. So in month one, I guess my point here is, uh, don't be generic. Get specific. Go into the win stories, go into examples, go into your win loss review, and really ensure that you're giving that contextual orientation to your seller right out of the gates. I promise you, they will love it. They will be thankful for it. So, in month two, uh, depending how you've set your kind of ramp schedule here, maybe, let's say, for example, one of your goals in month two is to maybe identify one to two opportunities and then progress one of those existing opportunities. So maybe you want to have maybe one or two qualified deals at the end of month two. So then you have to back into what that means, right? Because if one or two qualified deals at month two, depending on your cycle time and all of the math, eventually leads to a one deal around the corner in the ramp period. So for month two, your goal is to teach the seller how to progress an existing opportunity and then address the topics that come through in that opportunity, in that kind of cycle. So it's tailoring your product to each buyer persona. It's learning the different cycles of interest. Somebody that comes in inbound versus a deal that's sourced outbound versus a deal that's sourced through partner versus a deal that comes through back again from your close lost opportunity list. These are all different sales cycles, so to speak. So you want to arm your new hires with that. So that way, when they get their inbound in month two, they know exactly what to do. They know exactly how to progress it, and they know exactly how to turn that into an outcome for them that eventually rolls into their performance on the ramp period. I'm going to touch on one more slide here, and then I'm going to start to get into some factors that affect the ramp period that I wanted to quickly touch on, because this also comes up quite a bit. Again, depending on your ramp schedule, on month three, you want to simulate the real job as much as possible. And you want to encourage the new hire to show consistency in their primary and their secondary job responsibilities. And then also look at the comp plan and say, okay, I'm incenting somebody for maybe a competitive opportunity, or I'm incenting somebody to for volume, or I'm incenting somebody to do a 3-year deal versus a 1-year deal, and have your manager sit down with the new hire and practice those conversations that they're going to have with their prospect. Right, that's what aligns to comp plan outcomes. Another recommendation that I would make in month three is having like themes per day. So if you're selling to CFOs, CEOs, or a CIO, that can be a really high level, well thought out conversation. And so maybe just have like a CIO day or a CFO day where you're just really focused on one persona. So that way, when that person leaves their ramp period, they're super proficient in just speaking the language of who they're selling to. So these are all little details that roll into productivity that I want you to think about. And then, in month 3, as you can see on the right side of your screen, you should, see opportunity progression. Maybe you've got one deal forecasted to close because now, in the previous month we had talked about opportunity progression. So that training opportunity is an important one, and you should be inspecting your onboarding program to align to the comp plan and the ramp period. So I can't stress that enough. It's so important. You should also be training your enablement teams on what the comp plan is as well, so they can adjust the curriculum as needed. So I hope that was helpful. I have seen onboarding programs be highly effective in knowledge sharing. I have also seen onboarding programs that are just outstanding in helping the account executive or the seller leave their ramp period feeling just ready to make some money and also doing quite well. So I wanted to touch in on that really quickly. Then there's also, as I kind of shift gears a little bit into the compensation side of this presentation, I wanted to quickly address the factors that can affect your ramp period. So you're always going to hear this. Well, the product's really complex, so the sale may take a little bit longer. Or, maybe there was a new regulation that came out that affected the way that you sell. And so I think you also need to think about if this impacts your compensation program at all. And then if you foresee it either way, being ready to address that with your team. So for example, if your ICP is primarily C-level, maybe you're really focused on executive reporting this year, which I know is a very big topic going into the year, especially leaving sales planning. You might want to think of their availability. So can the seller sell to the C-level within a 2 or 3 month period that aligns with their ramp schedule? Maybe not, because C-level, you might be strapped by availability. And so you want to take that into consideration. Or maybe yes, because your product is super easy to purchase and access and turn on. If you're selling to administrators, if you've got like more like a bottom up product approach, that they're going to need to loop other stakeholders in, so that can further delay your cycle time. So you want to also take a look at your program and think about what are the factors that can affect the productivity on my ramp period, but also what are the factors that can affect my new hires. You hear it all the time, and this slide is really inspired by all the onboarding feedback I've seen over the course of my career. Is, I couldn't get a hold of this person, or we needed more time to talk about the product, or we needed to showcase X, Y, and Z to these folks, and they weren't available because they were caught up with board reporting. And so I want you to think about what factors can address can affect the ramp period, but then also ensure that this will probably come up with your sellers in the ramp period too, and you want to help them through it. I'm going to get into comp plan components here. So we talked a little bit about learning. We talked a little bit about how to structure your onboarding program to maximize the time that would eventually set your team up for success in their ramp period and beyond. I wanted to talk a little about the comp plan components. And it's like, okay, we've got the ramp schedule, we've got the learning, but then like what exactly should I be doing and when it comes to building a comp plan in that period? So this is obviously not limited to this. There's much more and a lot more creativity you can get with this, but there's the obvious ones. Like, so for a base salary, if you have an internal promotion, that's obviously should be a part of your compensation plan. Or a bonus or an incentive. Let's say the person is leaving their onboarding program and you had originally forecasted that they'll close 1 deal, but they're closing 3. They should receive an additional kicker for outperforming their volume target. or maybe a bonus and incentive for the mentor that helped the new hire get to their comp plan. That's also something I've seen quite a bit. Also, for if you're hiring a senior seller, maybe that is super comfortable speaking and positioning to kind of multi-year deals, you obviously want to think about how to retain that senior seller. So not only you want them to pitch a multi-year deal, but maybe they get kickers for year one, year two, and year three. And moving depending on the duration of the contract that they're signing. So with the prospect. So there's different ways you can get creative here. And there's also, any sort of accelerator. Let's say, a person outperformed their ramp period, and they are landed at 150% versus 100%. Maybe you've got some additional financial incentives for that 100 to 150% attainment that also helps them overachieve on their plan. So, and also make more money too. So there's different components that you can kind of pull into your comp program that will help not only get your sellers really excited now that they're studied and trained, now helping them tie that to some of the ways that they can actually make some cash in their ramp period. So those are some examples. I will say that my favorite one is probably the bonus incentive for peer learning. So let's say if you got a buddy program and the new hire just completely outperformed on their ramp period, and then maybe their mentor gets an incentive for that as well. Nothing can replace peer learning and learning from successful kind of sellers in your organization. So I think that that's someone that that's something I'd encourage you to lean in on. I know because I did it, and I had an internal kind of informal competition with one of my peers to see which one of our mentees can ramp the quickest, and mine won, and I do remind that person often. So I think that's a good one, and I think that's one that always is successful as a team. So I'm going to kind of wrap up Act 1 with that. I'm going to kind of go into the crucial role of the comp plans next. So what we had covered was building a training program, aligning that to performance, building a ramp schedule depending on the trends of your organization, and then also just sharing some ideas of what you can include in the comp plan for your new hires. So I'm going to check the chat in a moment, but I'm going to just hop into Act 2 here. Oh, there's a lot of really good questions. Okay, cool. Thank you. Fun. Okay, so let's go into the crucial role of comp plans. So knowing how to motivate your team and how to align the right behaviors is going to always have a positive impact of performance. And I want us to think about it like this. The seller, especially the senior sellers, will always think about how to view their comp plan in a way that, how is this going to help me? And so oftentimes senior sellers will also ask about comp plans even in their hiring and recruiting process. So knowing how to drive those right behaviors will always help the right people be successful and maximize their efforts with your organization. So here's some stats from the spiff archives here. Properly structured incentive programs can increase employee performance by 44%. Why is that? Because when you've got a properly structured comp plan, that person now wants to outperform their plan to do what? To meet their personal goals. Whether it's to buy a house or make an investment somewhere, or maybe, take their family to a theme park, or whatever one of your, personal or goals will be for yourself, your family, your community. A really good comp plan, somebody will see right through it. It'll be clear. It'll be transparent. That person will be motivated to perform, and they're motivated to perform because they see the connection into what they want to get out of it. And I think that's just always something to keep in mind. So 90% of top performing companies utilize incentive programs to reward their sales associates. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've been in, whether it was happy hour, informally, sometime at the grocery store, where I'm listening to my friends and family, and they feel so defeated that they gave it their all this year. They were the top performing individual in their organization, and there was no incentive program to reward them. And it becomes personal really quickly for them, especially as it relates to productivity and overall time and effort that they're going to give to the company. That's kind of what I had mentioned. That decision happens in onboarding. So even if it's an incentive program that takes you a step in the right direction, where you've got some whether it's a team bonus or a company bonus that helps align everybody to performance, I guarantee you that people are talking about this in some way, because everybody just wants to be successful. So I want you to think about this in terms of, it sounds like maybe whether you're just wrapping up your fiscal year, or you're just starting your calendar year, monitoring your compensation program in a way that helps people not only back it, believe in it, but see success in it, is important for performance as we kick off the year. Kind of another quick kind of guiding North Star here to align your comp plans with execution. We hear time and time again that the guiding light that helps your team execute against the comp plan is transparency. It's I'm working an opportunity. I want to know how much money I'm going to make off of this opportunity, or is this deal eligible to be commissioned? Depending on your territory structure, that's a conversation for a lot of us. Or I really want to know how much money I will make this quarter or this year based on the opportunities that I have in the pipeline. Oftentimes, that lends itself to shadow accounting, rogue calculators. And so when you're building your compensation plan, obviously you want to align it to your objectives. Obviously you want to be nimble and address the changing landscape too. There's some things mentioned earlier, but most importantly, it's arming your sellers with visibility into how they can maximize their comp plan, trust and transparency, so they can see how much money they made off of a deal, how much money they will make off of a deal, and then ensuring that your core systems of record feed into your compensation program accurately, asynchronously, and on time, right? So if you're an organization that is has very tight internal controls, where maybe you limit access to certain data that somebody would need to have more transparency into their commissions program, you want to think about an alternative to ensure that the seller has transparency, right? I say that because I was a part of an organization where they locked down every dollar value across the CRM, which is awesome. You want internal controls, but the downside of that is that your sellers don't do the shadow accounting, which you don't want, but you also don't want to completely remove their ability to run calculations against their plan. So you just want to think about some of those details there. So let's talk a little bit about some creative incentives. This is Act 3 here. I love creative incentives. I think it's something that helps bring the comp plan to life for your team. So we'll talk a little bit about just general motivation. So comp plans and policies have a huge impact on the behavior and performance of your sales teams. I will tell you that if you're let's say you just closed out the quarter and somebody thought that they would get X dollar amount commission, and they got another dollar amount, and that was due to a policy change, or that was due to maybe some fine print. I would encourage you to get ahead of that. Maybe hold office hours. Maybe enable the managers to have those conversations with their teams. So the comp plans and policies have a huge impact because oftentimes this is an afterthought when somebody didn't have the transparency into what they'll make off of an opportunity. So I would encourage you to think of it like that, where maybe your comp plan owners will sit down with your managers. Maybe you'll run a session once a quarter, so that way when somebody is amped to close a deal and also amped to see their check, and maybe they had a couple of questions, they get answers very quickly, and that also helps kind of keep the spirits high across the team when it comes to maximizing your plan. Um, I think this is continuing down the theme of when sellers are empowered and you've got clear ramp plans, and clear ramp plans that are backed by some level of data that is easily kind of showcased through the research. I talked a little bit earlier about creating some examples. People will be motivated to be successful. You'll in the onboarding program, you create a path to align to the plan. You track their impact based on whatever single source of truth or reporting tool you're using. You keep it super simple, and then you also implement the right tools to help maximize productivity where it's needed in their ramp period. So I can't stress enough that when you're whatever program you're building, whatever training effort you're doing, take a look at the comp plan and ensure that you can tie this to what's in it for them. Ooh, I love this one. Personalization versus standardization. I I've had a lot of conversations, and I imagine there's a couple of us in the audience as well, that you've got a really broad territory, or you've got like a very hyper vertical small territory, maybe 30 accounts, where that calls for a comp plan that is a little bit more customized. And so I think you owe it to your sellers in every planning period to understand what the DNA is of those closed won opportunities. What is the DNA of your open pipeline? What is the DNA of your go-to-market motion? Are you inbound? Are you outbound? Are you partner referral? What types of deals are closing in what industry? And when you're thinking about it constantly, not just once a year, maybe this is once a quarter in your end of quarter reporting efforts, that will also help personalize the comp plan where needed, or standardize where needed. And so I also had a conversation pretty recently with one of my friends in alliances, and they were telling me, Melody, we're just getting started with our alliances kind of structure. We don't have a lot of pipeline right now, but I do want to incent the right activity for this person, so that way we can have more success maybe in the back half of the year. And so then the comp plan was, well, why don't we just incent on meetings showed? And in our system of record here, we basically identified different meeting types to see, where they were booking meetings, whether it was internal team, external team, creating a lead. And that way, for the next 6 to 8 months, we drum up interests. That's a fairly kind of standard, almost SDR, BDR plan. But then in the back half of the year, once this person had momentum, we were going to personalize it towards the alliances and the partner channel. That's a-okay. It's one foot in step of the other that will help us get better outcomes and more clear outcomes for that person, depending on where they are in their life cycle of planning. So that's a quick example. I know we've all been to kind of different conferences and had different conversations of how different organizations run. That would be one. There's plenty more depending on how specific you are, vertical, team, market segment, product related, or whatnot. I love this one. So individual and team-based metrics. I will say this previous fiscal year, this is a personal story. I went from a project-based quarterly bonus where I was incented on project completion, whatever that may be, depending on our priorities in front of us, to a quarterly bonus that was paid out on team attainment. And I will tell you that that change was life changing for me because it was excellent for alignment into what our sales leaders needed from me, not just what we were what we had the capacity to complete that quarter. And so I have always been on a project based kind of plan pretty much my whole career, and I finally had the opportunity to move, and I love it. And so it's really helpful for alignment. It plugs me right into productivity. And so when I'm sharing these personal stories, that's also the intent of this slide. Is you've got your individual targets, maybe that's attainment, maybe that's overachievement of their goals, resulting in additional accelerators or additional incentives. But then also, as a team, you want to think about how to remove friction. Here's another really good example. So, I was a part of a sales team where the expansion business was finding their identity. So, some CSMs were processing expansion orders. Then, as the customer account executive or the account manager was ramping, they would also process some expansion opportunities. And the organization double comped both roles because at the end of the day, we wanted the customer to have the best experience over any sort of internal rule that we would have. And there was a long-term understanding that eventually all expansion would roll into the customer account executive or the account manager. So those team metrics, however you land on this, just remember that you want the customer to have the best, most frictionless experience. And you can always grow and mature and establish rules at any point in your organizational maturity. It's just a customer first approach often solves for some of these team based metrics as well. So, the last slide I was kind of pointing to, and I think this is also one of my favorites, is visibility into compensation has several different parts of their life cycle in time. So oftentimes you win a deal, there's maybe some shadow accounting that takes place. Maybe your sellers will create a calculator or they'll use the calculator that you had shared with them. And then they'll see their statement and they'll see how much money they made. There's also a lot of opportunity to identify how much money someone will make off of an opportunity while the sale is still active. And I think this is a really active conversation in commission management right now. It's identifying opportunities where you can say, okay, well, I'm going to give this opportunity this amount of time because this is what it's going to yield me as a seller. And you can now have more visibility throughout the sales process in addition to what you see after the deal has closed. So frequent compensation also frequent visibility into compensation also allows your team to have more momentum because you're always seeing that dollar value that you're going to get when the deal closes. You're seeing that early on. And so we have that internally here at Spiff. It's been awesome. And so this is if you're looking for a win for your team, I would highly recommend thinking about how to give more commission transparency throughout the sales process. I'll bring it back around to say in month 1 or month 2, let's say you are progressing an opportunity into evaluation and your seller is valuing the opportunity. And if you have a way to show the seller how much money they're going to make based on the value of the opportunity at that stage, that's just an awesome story for them. So they'll get motivated. They'll start to ask what I can do to close the opportunity. And then that's what leads en masse to broader success with a comp plan. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much. I hope today's presentation was informative, maybe a reminder of some themes, maybe introduced some new ideas to bring to your team, new questions. And thank you so much for your time. We're always more than happy to chat about commission management, compensation all day. And so if you have any questions, it sounds like we'll take some questions now in the chat, and I'm always happy to field any questions after.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melody. That was an incredible presentation. I have so many notes. We got a few questions in here. So let me start with Brian.
Okay.
Could you discuss the challenges and strategies involved in integrating incentive programs with organizational goals?
Yeah. So great question. So when we think about integrating incentive compensations into your organizational goals, oftentimes what I see is that the organizational goals are in flux, meaning they haven't been determined in advance, that allows commission teams to properly plan or present a couple of options. So I think that's one thing I often see. The other thing is maybe a lack of um, how do I say this? Maybe a lack of balance. So maybe if you know that what has made you successful in the prior year, um, you'll now add an additional product, an additional service in the upcoming year, and you're anticipating that product or service to have a certain amount of success. So you're building that in the comp plan. That is a hypothesis that has not been backed by data. So when you're thinking about how to solve for some of these challenges, there's obviously way more. But when you're thinking about how to solve for these challenges, look at your comp plan and say, what do we have verifiable historical data for? Even if it's a little, even if you feel it's unreliable, normalize it to the best you can. But I would look at your comp plan and say, what do I have in my building today that is real? And then what do I have that is aspirational moving forward? And maybe that aspirational goal is a bonus or an accelerator because it hasn't yet proven itself to make money for your sellers. So I would try and find that balance, but oftentimes it's a lack of decision making, a lack of advance time, or an overstretch of determining what the seller should be compensated for, to which you just have to get to what's real would be my recommendation there. Obviously, I'm saying that from afar, so if that wasn't what you wanted to hear, I'd love to continue offline.
Awesome. We have a question here that touches in data too. Can you elaborate? Michelle is asking, can you elaborate on the role of data analytics in shaping compensation plans, particularly in predicting seller ramp times and aligning them with performance targets?
Oh, Michelle, great question. So I'm just taking some notes here. So the role of data is important for a couple of reasons. One, oftentimes we hear that the time to calculate the plan involves a lot of manual reconciliation or manual manipulation of data. Um, Oftentimes we also hear that, I can't have access to an administrative resource for my CRM, or I don't have the data points available to me in my systems of record. The first challenge is to prioritize what you need out of your systems of record, so you're not manually manipulated anything. We hear that so much. The role of data readiness, especially with analytics, you will force multiply if you move towards automation. For example, in a dashboard, I would imagine that you would want to see how much have I paid out per month, per quarter, per year, whatever that is, based on role, based on plan, based on geography. If I know that I have a region, a team, a geography, an ICP that is not as fruitful as my original plan had modeled, you are likely going to hear about it at some point later from your sellers. So the more automation, the better, because you'll not only get the analytics, not only for your finance team, if you are over or under budget for your commissions, you need to communicate that as well. But then also, oftentimes, effective reporting will also help you understand where the problems might be with rep satisfaction. I can go on this topic, Michelle. I hope that helps. And please let me know if you want me to elaborate anyway.
Awesome, thank you. We have time for one more. Joshua is asking, in the context of multi-year compensation structures, how do you ensure ongoing motivation and performance, particularly with long-term sales goals and targets?
Great question, Joshua. I I think that the comp plan needs to mature alongside the seller. This is my personal opinion. So I'll give you an example of this, and this is what I've had a frame of reference to in my career. But oftentimes at some point throughout uh, my journey as an operator, you outline what what is the proficiency level of each seller or level of seller in my organization. And maybe early proficiency, your comp plans are very simple, easy to understand, maybe just focused on attainment. But as somebody matures in your organization, I highly encourage you to think about like a bonus or an incentive for mentoring or teaching. So if you're incenting one account executive to spread their knowledge across the team, that is motivating for that account executive because they're now getting paid to teach. But then also the sellers will now reap the benefits of what's successful for somebody else. They're going to do this anyways. It's just going to be, you know, off the clock, right? And so um, I would encourage you to align seller kind of proficiency levels, but then also think about when you've reached a level of proficiency in your sales organization where you want to replicate those behaviors, you want that to go through your organization in some way, and that eventually helps your goals and your targets because now you've spreaded the wealth. So I hope that's helpful. Many ways to answer that, but thank you for the question, Joshua.
Awesome. We don't have time for any more questions, but thank you so much, Melody. That was a very thorough presentation. I think the audience really liked it. Audience, thank you so much for joining us. And if you liked what Melody shared with us today, make sure that you click the button at the top of this page to request a demo with the team at Spiff, and they will get in touch with you later today. And also download the ebook. I'm putting the QR code on the screen right now. You can also find this ebook in the sponsor booth at the top of this page. I will also include this information in my follow-up email. So thank you so much, Melody. Thank you so much, Spiff. Audience, you are the best part of MSP. I will see you in the next event. While Melody and I hang out backstage, the team at Modern Sales Pros will make sure that your audience receives the recording, the key takeaways, the ebook, and everything that Melody shared with us today here in your inbox. So look out for an email from us later today, all right? Bye bye. Thank you, Melody.